so as you play the game, there's more and more puzzles that you have to solve using pieces of the real world because it's zombie apocalypse. And so Joel is overcoming all of these obstacles in more and more creative ways. And one of them is dumpsters. It's like a staple in The Last of Us that there are dumpsters because dumpsters have casters. So you can push and roll them.
Okay, yeah.
So you'll like, oh, I can't get up there. Oh, but there's a dumpster in this garage. So I'll just jack the garage open and then move the dumpster. But at one point I'm playing as him and I've got the dumpster and I'm moving it. But he walks up the stairs a little bit. So the dumpster planarly, like it doesn't angle at all. It just floats in the air with where he has stepped for a few seconds. So the reason Joel survives The Last of Us is because he is fucking shredded. He can pick up a dumpster. Like, and that's the thing is it's not like at any point he doesn't sound strained. He kind of like puts his back into pushing it a little bit. But primarily, it was just the most bizarre, like, oh, because he's the whole time, he's bleeding. He gets cut. And he has to like wrap his arm up. He's like, he's out of breath because he's older. I think in The Last of Us, he's supposed to, if not 50, in his 50s, like right at there. And so it was just so visually jarring, the dumpster floating in the air and him holding it. And Ellie's like, come on, Joel. And it's like, no, why aren't you amazed by this?
Why are you not freaking out?
You are looking at a carnival strongman. Be amazed. He ripped a phone book in half with like a sneeze. He is the most capable. There's an old Cyanide and Happiness cartoon, and it's one of my favorites. And it's 50 Mile an Hour Man. And it's a guy he's the fastest man on earth, but it's not Barry Allen who can run back in time. It is, he can run 50 miles an hour. And the whole bit is that he is running because he misses his bus, and he's running alongside of his bus. And he's like, hey, stop the bus. I got to make it. And the guy's like, I can't stop, man. If I take this bus under 50 miles an hour, the whole thing's going to explode. And he's like, does that mean I'm running 50 miles an hour? And it's just yes, it's not an amazing thing, but Joel can pick up a fucking dumpster.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
For just like who should be just a regular dude.
And I keep wanting to get back to it, but I can't because of the fact that Ghostface is in Mortal Kombat. I want to get back to Last of Us. It's only free for so long on PlayStation. I want to get back to it really bad, but it's the amount of references and Easter eggs and stuff that they have thrown into him in Mortal Kombat is just and I love Mortal Kombat. I always have. This new game is pretty divisive, but I know you don't play fighting games.
No.
I love them.
But watching you play has been pretty, like, especially like you said, the amount of just sheer references to, I mean, we've counted ones from pretty much every Scream movie that I can think of in little tiny ways. They reference things.
Yeah. And it's when, you go into certain moves, the characters will lose their masks. If you're in like a fatal blow, for example, Scorpion loses his mask. And when Ghostface loses his mask, it was mocapped Skeet Ulrich.
Wow.
He came into the studio to mocap his face so that Ghostface would be Billy. And there's like dialogue where it's like, if you're Ghostface, it's like a mirror match. If you're Ghostface versus Ghostface, it'll be like, is that you, Billy? And it's like, yeah, of course it is, Stu. And it's like, oh, this is great. It's wonderful. And it was just such a weird series of nebulous events where we start the podcast talking about the Scream franchise. In the middle of it, right as we are ramping pre-production for this, we're getting our artwork created. We're getting the stuff all set up. We were in talks with Ty to produce. We're doing all of this. As all of this is happening, the trailer for their DLC comes out, and it's, and the last face you see is Ghostface. And then while we are in the midst of recording between 4 and 5 releases.
Yeah.
And it's just weird. It's a weird coincidence. And he's fucking great. It is, I am only okay at these games, but of all of the games that are like fighting games that I've ever kind of been good at, I am the best with Ghostface than I have been with anyone else, because he's easy to play. He's super funny. Roger Jackson's voiceover the entire time. It's just, it's really tremendous. And it is as tremendous as Joel is superhuman. Hello, all you newbies and schmoobies, and welcome back to the Third Channel Podcast,
where we delve into the horror franchises you love from the perspectives of a lifelong horror fan.
a schmoobie, and also a newbie. I'm that newbie PJ,
And I'm Derek.
and you're obviously the schmoobie.
Yeah, that would make me the schmoobie.
And today, this newbie and schmoobie only have one thing to talk about, like every week, and that thing is horror. As we buckle up to talk about the first movie you and I watched together as part of this journey. This was the very first. It's before we were going to go see Scream 6 as it released in theaters.
Mhm.
So before that, you were like, hey, you need to know what the fuck you're watching, because if not, this will be a terrible experience. So we sat down and we watched, I think it was streaming on Paramount Plus. We watched Scream, the 2022.
Yeah.
Scream 5, Scream, whatever.
Yeah, let's get this out of the way now.
Yes.
The actual title of this film is Scream. It was released in 2022, not to be confused with Scream, released in 1996, the original.
Like
So
Halloween.
we're going to call this, yes.
Yeah. Like Halloween, because that's either 2018 or 78. But it can't be both.
Right. Which is what this particular movie is kind of like referencing or poking fun at. They do it several times throughout. But for our ease of conversation,
Yes.
we're going to call this Scream 5.
Now, you don't want to call it Scream V,
No.
because Roman numerals are silly to use because Rome is gone. If you're out there still using Roman numerals or using Latin phrases at all, a friend of ours named Sam, Sam, thanks for listening, I hope. A friend of ours named Sam uses Latin phrases to describe things.
Mhm.
I don't know any of them. Caterus, paribus, something, whatever he uses. Sam, Rome's gone. No one speaks that language. They famously call it a dead language. Saying those things that you say are silly. Don't talk like that. Use English or whatever language that is currently not dead. You tool. Anyway, like we started last week with Scream 4, we're going to kind of get to the synopsis of this movie just for ease of access for anybody who may have not seen this movie or just needs a refresher. So this is what it says on IMDb. Now, 4 synopsis was terrible.
Yeah.
Did nothing. This one's much better.
Mhm.
This one's serviceable. 25 years after a streak of brutal murders shocked the quiet town of Woodsboro, California, a new killer dons the Ghostface mask and begins targeting a group of teenagers to resurrect secrets from the town's deadly past.
Yeah,
Very good.
I think that touches on everything that we kind of need for what this movie ended up being,
Yes,
which is Scream 5.
which is very high on my list.
Yeah.
I think that this is either my favorite
Mhm.
or it is directly under the original. It is the two of them work so well together. The two of them work in this wonderful way where, Halloween 2018, and again, spoilers, but Halloween 2018 doesn't look at the rest of the franchise. It looks
Right.
at the first film and then it goes into 2018. This movie does not do that. This movie beautifully accounts for everything, but sparsely enough to make it its own creature.
Right.
And it I try to give a soft ranking, and maybe at the end of this franchise,
Yeah.
we'll give a definitive ranking for each
Yeah.
of us. But I want to say that, emotionally and, both emotionally and logistically, this movie is very important to me, but it's also very good. So this is the one, right?
Yeah.
We start with, and it's funny because it's like, I can't wait to talk about Scream. And then I can't wait to talk about Scream 2022, Scream 5. And we have to talk about the others to get there.
Right.
So this is the one that I've been kind of, shadow boxing in my mirror for.
Yeah, I'm glad we've finally made it here. It is you had an odd order that you've watched
Mhm.
these things in, but here we are, Scream 5. Let's go real quickly into its release date, January of 2022.
Which got pushed back because of COVID, right?
Yes, it did.
Yeah.
So actually, even before that, let's jump a little bit more into just a quick history of. So Scream 4 happens, it's released. It doesn't make quite as much money that they want, but a 5th and a 6th Scream film are discussed at that time whenever they make Scream 4. Didn't make as much money as they wanted, and so that kind of stalls the plans on immediately greenlighting a Scream 5
Right.
with Wes or Kevin Williamson or any of the main cast or any of that. So a few years goes by and they make Scream the TV series,
Mm-hmm.
which ran from like 2015 to 2019. It ran for 3 seasons
Mhm.
on MTV and VH1. I have not seen any of this.
I have.
I haven't seen a frame of this movie.
Yeah, it got picked up.
Show.
Yeah, the show got picked up from MTV onto Netflix and was there for a while. So I watched part of the first season, didn't really care for the direction that they were going because I don't think it works long form like that. And then watched the third season is when they get the licensing from Fun World as well to use the mask. And then Roger Jackson comes back to do the voice. So for the third season, it is your traditional Ghostface killer. Because the first two seasons, it's like sort of like a blank face mold that has been painted. The Ghostface eyes and mouth are kind of painted onto it. It's okay, but it's not my favorite.
Yeah.
And then Ghostface himself, like in the full visual, returns for the third season, which was not good. It unfortunately, for me, I think the TV show, and for a lot of people, I think the TV show was just a dud.
Right. And for whatever reason, that's where they wanted to take it. That's where they thought that the future of this franchise could be, since a movie was not going to be made.
Which is funny because then again, Scream, the franchise, and Wes to an extent guessing the future. I keep calling it the spooky future. Is that then Chucky goes on later to do a TV show as well,
pretty successfully, because I have watched most of that show so far, and I really enjoy it.
Right.
The other thing that kind of then happens is, after the in 2017, the sexual assault allegations come out against Harvey Weinstein,
right?
Who he and his brother Bob Weinstein, they are the owners, operators, whatever, of the production company, the Weinstein Company. Before that, it was Miramax, who owns the rights to the Scream franchise. So once those things come out, the Weinstein Company closes, and so the rights are kind of up in the air a bit. And eventually, in like early 2019, there's reports that Blumhouse Productions is thinking about a Scream sequel or reboot or what have you. Those claims have actually been found to not be true. Apparently, I don't know if that was just like Hollywood insiders trying to.
It's Blumhouse and A24. Yeah. Everybody says that they're going to do everything,
and whether or not that's true,
because sometimes they do. Like Blumhouse gives treatments for 3 Halloween movies out of nowhere, and it's like, oh, okay. And then sometimes it's not true, like Scream.
Yeah. And so what actually happens is in November of 2019, Spyglass Media Group acquires the rights to do a new Scream movie. The unfortunate thing is that this is now the first Scream movie that we have without Wes Craven.
Yeah.
Because Wes Craven unfortunately passed away in August 30th of 2015 from brain cancer. He was 76 at the time.
I think everybody on Earth agrees with this sentiment. Every time that the cancer touches somebody, it's fuck cancer.
Yeah.
But seriously, fuck cancer. It's awful. And he was. It's weird because in watching these and rewatching these, we've listened to commentary and commentaries for Screams 1 through 4, all feature Wes talking, and it's like. He was it wasn't just that he was a good movie maker, because he was an exceptional one. He also just seems like an excellent human being. Yeah. Just the way people talk of him, the way the stories are. Wes Craven's New Nightmare, right? He's featured in it so often. And that was the first time I think I even saw him. I didn't know what he looked like.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Unfortunately for photos of his passing that would be in headlines. But to see him move and talk is a different experience than seeing a photo of him. And yeah, it's just listening to him talk through this commentary. It's funny because it's like almost posthumously I am hit with that, like, oh man, I cannot believe that he passed before I was into the things that he made.
Right. And that's another thing that's strange about this occurrence, his death in general, is you and I happen to be on microphone whenever we learned of his passing.
We were wrapping up an episode. We were right at the end of an episode of a podcast that we were on. And I looked at my phone, saw, and went, oh shit, y'all, Wes Craven just died, like within minutes of reading the article. And so I think we sat back down and recorded just another
probably another 10 minutes of us just like talking about his legacy and just how important he is to, me especially.
Which is ironic because at the time, it really didn't affect me at all.
Right. But you just happened to be the one that, you opened up and saw, and it was just like, oh my God, yeah, I think we owe it to ourselves and owe it to Wes to talk about.
Yeah.
But that's honestly then what Scream 5 is a love letter to Wes. Like they set out with the idea of this is going to be for Wes. It's dedicated to him at the end, which was something that Kevin Williamson who didn't write this movie. I'll get to that in a second. We'll go over it real quickly. But it's something that he said is just like, the only way that I will come back and have anything to do with this is, and give my blessing, is if you got to dedicate it to Wes.
Yeah.
And so Scream 5 released January of 2022. Like we said, it got pushed because of COVID a little bit. That affected a lot of movie productions at that time.
Every production, yeah. Disney pushed a million things. Everything got pushed. I'm happy it came out when it did.
Yes. And it was one that, it was, I saw it in theaters originally. And then I don't think I rewatched it again until watching it with you before Scream 6. So I think that was a good...
I think it was part of the way you pitched it to me is like, well, I need to rewatch it anyway.
Yeah.
Because I'm not going to remember everything.
And I'm glad that I did, because it is so solidly tied with 6. It's directed by, I'm maybe going to mess up his name, Matt Bettinelli-Olpin. It's a hyphenated name.
Okay.
And then it's a co-directed film with Tyler Gillett. Again, maybe mispronouncing that.
Okay.
They are like a directing team.
Maybe Gillet.
Could be. That I truly don't know.
See, French is a real language, Sam.
Just cemented in there. So they are, Olpin and Gillett are part of a filmmaking collective that they call Radio Silence, or Radio Silence Productions. And they've done several things. Like pretty much everything that they direct is together. So they had a segment in the VHS anthology film from 2012.
Okay.
They did a movie called Devil's Due. They did another anthology film with some of the other people in their collective of Radio Silence. That film is called Southbound. And then just previously to this movie, they did Ready or Not, which is the one with, what is it, Samara Weaving?
Yep, that's her. I actually just rewatched that.
That's so funny, because that's a movie that I have yet to see yet. So Ty, you've seen a horror movie that I haven't seen.
Wow. And that's too, because I saw Smile too.
Oh, yeah.
What did you think of Scream 2022?
Yeah, I haven't seen that one.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I haven't.
And now we're back kind of on even footing.
Yeah.
I haven't really gotten around to that one.
But they're a directing duo. They've worked together. They continue to work together, because then they also did Scream 6 after this, and they did the other 2024 movie, Abigail, which also stars Melissa Barrera. Is that how you pronounce her name? Okay. Written by James Vanderbilt and Guy Busick, another duo. They've worked together before, but it's not like they're always a thing.
Guy Busick sounds like a fake name Gary Busey would come up with.
Yeah, that truly does.
Guy Busick.
And they've had some earlier horror credits as well. Budget on this one, guesses?
Oh God, the last one was 40. This is years later.
Yep. Another 11 years has passed.
11 years later into a time where movies cost a fuck ton of money. 60? I'm going to say 60 to 70.
So I don't know how or why, but they went back down to a budget of $24 million.
Do you know I've been wrong every time?
Yeah, and it's hilarious every time.
That's rude as hell.
So yeah, it dropped back down to like what Scream 2 budget was.
That's weird.
It's weird.
Because this does not look like a cheap movie.
No. And then I don't know. It does. It does not look like a cheap movie at all.
But horror is, right? It is the one that is, do you have $20 in a handy cam? Make Blair Witch. I know I'm not saying that I know what you mean. Costs, But yeah, you can get away with certain things in this because it's not about the way it looks. It's about what's happening. It's about the spectacle.
Yeah. And that's why they pump them out as often as they tend to do. That's how Blumhouse, that's their whole model. They make it for cheap. It makes a ton of money so that they can make it the next one or start the next franchise, whatever that might be.
Yeah.
Box office.
Oh God. So it costs 20, you said 25?
24.
Okay. Oh man. Because it was huge.
It was.
I'm going to guess 100 million.
Yeah. It's 100 and just shy of 140.
So they made about
million.
140.
Yeah.
Wow. That made a lot of money.
Yeah. It's under what like Scream made, but then, and I'm not running these numbers in
inflation,
any of that. I'm literally just going off of what the total box office was.
We also have to remember that if the movie comes out in 2022, it has been years now of COVID, which means that no one's making any money from anything that they're releasing. That kind of explains like the Ghostfaces in Mortal Kombat. And like you can go to a Target store and buy a Scream shirt. Because I mean, that shatters shit.
Yeah.
That's really good.
Yeah. If we can't get you, in asses in seats for the movie itself, then we're going to sell you, merchandise with the character just to keep that name out there.
Yeah.
And then just like always, during filming, didn't want any plot leaks. A bunch of different versions of the screenplay were written, and people weren't given, I think I've read that they weren't given past like of the 140-page script, they were only given the first 75 pages because they didn't want anything close to the ending to be leaked.
That is so funny. As always, spoiler for this movie.
Yes.
And every movie in this franchise. This one will probably contain quite a bit of spoilers for the next one as well, just because they are twins. They are connected to each other. So if we are spoiling things for Scream 2022, Scream 5, we will. It's so funny. You said we'll call it Scream 5, and I keep fucking that up. We will talk about Scream 5, but Scream 5 and 6 share a lot of similarities. So there will be spoilers in both of those. I had who the Ghostface killer was in this spoiled for me long before I saw it, because I didn't think I would ever need to see this movie. So I didn't really care about the spoiler at the time. And then after the fact, it really bothered me because I was like, I put too much suspicion on Richie, because Richie played by Jack Quaid, whom I love. I think he's super talented. He's my favorite part of everything he's in.
Truly.
I haven't seen Oppenheimer, but he's my favorite part of Oppenheimer.
Man, he plays the hell out of those bongos.
Great. I have no frame of reference for that, so I'm just going to nod. And if you are at home, nod along with me. Bongo drums in Oppenheimer.
This is more for me, I guess, than anyone else. Have you seen The Boys?
Yes.
He's your favorite part of The Boys?
By a lot, yeah. Why would it not be Huey? The fact that, spoilers for The Boys, the fact that when they give him a way to get superpowers in the most Huey way ever, he also has to be naked. It's the funniest shit. Everything he does is hilarious.
Fair. Not the podcast for it, but...
We'll talk about this later. Because it is Huey, and I can prove that with math and science. But I did get it spoiled from an episode of, I think it was Best of the Worst, which is a Red Letter Media YouTube show. And one of the hosts has Jack on as a guest, and he's like, ladies and gentlemen, Jack Quaid, the new Ghostface killer in the 2022 Scream remake. And it's like, at the time I was like, oh, that's probably pretty funny if I understood that reference. And then we sit down to watch Scream, and it's like, well, is that a bit? Were they making a joke because it's not actually him? And then it was. And I was like, man, I wonder if I would have been able to pick that up. But that's really the only thing that I was able to guess. Everything else, I'm brand new to this at the time. This is the first Band-Aid pull.
Sidney Prescott. I'm a really big fan.
Go fuck yourself.
You see the last Stab movie?
Not really a fan of scary movies.
That checks out. Anyway, it sucked balls. Because nobody takes the true fans seriously. Not really. They just laugh at us. And why? Because we love something? We're just a fucking joke to them? How can fandom be toxic? It's about love. They don't fucking understand these movies are important to people.
Richie.
And we're gonna help them. Hollywood's totally fucking out of ideas, so we decided we'd give them some new source material to follow, Bring it back to basics. Because that's how you make a great Stab movie, Sam. Based on actual events.
My favorite part of that entire speech, my favorite part is, have you seen the last Stab movie? No, it sucked balls. And I love that for two reasons. Number one, Jack Quaid is so excellent at being the heel, turning in that way. But it's still silly because he and you and I had a minor like, oh really? I thought it was really good because I laugh because he's just, it's so funny watching him try to be a villain because he's so lovable and dorky.
Yeah.
That like, and you think it's effective. Watching it and continuing to watch it, it gets more effective as the scenes go on. But in the very beginning, he's like, shut the fuck down, Prescott. It's just so ridiculous.
Seems put on.
Yeah.
And then he kind of becomes more of it. But yeah, I think his turn, I enjoy his turn. I think he does a pretty good job of being both sides of that. I think he has a weird, he's a little bit Billy and he's a little bit Stu.
Yeah.
Like he pulls off both kind of the goofy, like.
He's the handsome, charismatic, crazy goofball.
Yeah.
He is both of those things. And this movie to me serves up on a platter what society was like after episode 8, Star Wars episode 8. It is, everyone is talking about it. I worked at a Target at the time and could not avoid those conversations. It hands it to you. It's everyone you see. But did you see the new Star Wars? What'd you think of it? and there is a right answer because I didn't know anybody that was like, that's all right. That's okay. You either, it's the most revolutionary thing in the world, or no, it fucking sucks. It's the worst thing I've ever seen. It's made me hate Star Wars. It's made me hate whatever. And it's how can a fandom be toxic?
Right.
It's based on love. And it's like, oh yeah, this is just making, it's shining a light on the Twitterness of the way the world reacts to media.
Mm-hmm.
And, we mentioned this briefly in our last discussion with Scream 4, where the thing that they are lampooning in the beginning is that it's hard to make horror movies with Kristen Bell and Anna Paquin. It's hard to make horror movies, but that's not the real message. They get killed. That's just an ape off of what the actual story is, which is the story is it's hard to make something unique.
Right.
This one is no matter what we make, everyone's going to hate it. People will say we're the diehard fans. And that's the story to me in this one is no matter what people do, if you do it in service for the people that love it, they will hate it because it's just, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it love Scream. And they just don't give a shit. Everything they do in this movie is their own. They throw every previous set of rules out the window. Everything is so compelling. But also, as somebody who watched this as the first installment, it works on its own. You take everything else out of it. There are names you don't recognize, and there are moments that you don't really understand. But for the majority of the movie, it works. It is a good whodunit, which is, I love this movie so fucking much.
Yeah. And I think it's a testament to, and it plays into the theming of that, is that both the director pair and the writing pair, because this is a movie being made without Wes Craven, but it's being made by fans of the original Scream franchise and everything that Wes Craven has done, like, it is made with the utmost love and care. But they're also having to...
We have to make this our own. We can't just follow Wes's blueprint. We have to create something that stands us out.
And we have to take it into the next step, like all these Scream movies do, of, okay, well, what is the horror... what is the horror landscape at this time? We're a decade later. What do horror movies look like? What are we doing? Well, last time we were doing reboots and remakes. Well, this time we've kind of gotten away from doing like direct reboots. And instead, the popular thing is, let's do a legacy sequel. Let's do a requel, which is like a remake and a sequel at the same time, but with new characters and old characters. And like, it's kind of passing the torch, but it's like, well, all these new characters are related in some way to our original cast. And that's the whole reason why these killings start happening again.
And it's so funny because a horror landscape at the time looks like that. And the Tales side of that coin is what they call elevated horror, which right from the jump, they immediately call out the fact this is not what that is. We are not. I think Jenna Ortega's character even says the Babadook, and it's like, or Hereditary. It's like, we are not this.
Yeah,
we are the other thing. We are the old one that is being done in a modern way. And you mentioned in our Scream 4 discussion how much more brutal and graphic Scream 4 was, especially compared to 3.
Yeah.
This one is so much more brutal and graphic compared to Scream 4.
Yes, it is like evident of just how far, I think it points to just how different and more extreme the horror landscape is at this time.
Yeah.
Is all the violence, all the, gore and things like that. One, our effects have become better in ways. I mean, people argue that, of course.
As we move from the real to the fake, as we move from it's the real versus the fake in that, you've got the old Friday the 13th. You have so many famous effects artists, and that's the thing that you want to be, is the effects artist, because Tom Savini is the, Jason's dad. I created the kid. I create all his kills. I created his death, yada, yada. And then you have very much CG stuff. And so
I think with this one, we reach a happy medium. I think they do as much practically as they can.
Yeah. Like Jenna Ortega's character in that opening sequence, which is my favorite opening. It is. And I know that's probably blasphemous. I understand that because, the Scream's original with Drew Barrymore is so
iconic,
evocative of the genre in general, but also the franchise as a whole. But this one is just so excellent. Jenna's great. She's always great. I love her in everything that she's been in. And this is such a good performance of somebody who has so much of an emotional roller coaster in such a period of time that there's that phone call, which here's another thing to consider. Because this is the first movie in the franchise I've ever seen, Ghostface calls, phone rings, same ringtone every time it rings. She picks up the phone, hello, and it's Ghostface's voice. You sitting next to me on the couch, you reacted. It's like you knew it was coming, but still it's like, this is nice.
Yeah.
And I'm not picking up on that. I don't know who this is. I have no idea. So I'm just listening to this phone call like, oh, this guy seems nice. I wonder what his deal is. Like, it's a horror movie. So it's like, how does this guy turn into a douchebag? And then it's slowly, it's the Bruce Wayne. It's Kevin Conroy's Bruce Wayne turning into Batman. He goes from talking like this to talking like this. And the Ghostface, he can sound like a normal guy, and then all of a sudden it's a bit more, and it's creepy. And it goes, you have no time to keep up. Then there are, a text gets sent, your friend Amber, I'm about to kill your friend Amber. And it's, oh, now I'm going to kill you. And then the most chilling line of any of these movies, final bonus question. When you were changing the lock, or when you were doing the locks, did I make it inside? And then he swoops in and attacks. But it's like,
it doesn't give you time to think about that question at all before he is out of that, the dark hallway and on her.
And when you look at all the kills in this movie, and we will have our moment of silence for Dewey, but you've got your kills in this with Dewey's death, with Jenna's not death, but her attack, and Deputy Hicks, and all of these kills that happen throughout the movie. They are brutal. Ghostface basically punching the knife into Deputy Hicks's heart,
using like her own body weight and running speed to make the kill.
Right. But none of that is exemplified more because you watch Scream 4 and I didn't get this at the time, but in rewatching, you watch 4 and then 5, and 4 is like, wow, these are pretty brutal in comparison to the rest of the franchise. And then 5, the leg kick is like, because this is a little girl. This is a teenage girl. She's young.
She was 17. Well, what's funny is whenever they originally shot the scene, or the majority of the scene, she was 17. And then they had to do pickups later on. So she's 18 in the back half of the scene.
Oh, okay.
So
But I think her
she had a
character
birthday in between.
I think her character is supposed to be mid to late high school. So probably 16, 17. And it's just this kid and the leg break and just chasing her down. And it's just so disturbing. And I prefer elevated horror. And then she's this victim of this assault, and it's horrible and brutal. And you have his voice, and he's toying with her and playing with her. And it's like, this is the scariest that this concept can be. This is what, and I've said before in this show that Casey Beck, the visual of Casey hanging from the tree is terrifying. But there is something else about it, not seeing it, but seeing it happen. Not the aftermath, but the during.
Right, it's different.
It's so horrific. And also, Roger Jackson is so fucking good as a vocal performer that you're also just like, oh shit, Ghostface is so fucking rad. He's so cool.
Well, and it ties it back in immediately with, they're talking about Stab. Jenna's character is, obsessed with quote unquote elevated horror. And so he begins quizzing her on Stab, the original Stab film, and she doesn't know it, but like she ekes out the answers enough, and she kind of cheats her way through it. And he still ends up right there. It's the double cross of, oh no, he's not at Amber's house. He's right here. He's going to kill you. And it is brutal. It is horrifying.
And on rewatch, it calls back to that first movie in a way that I love. It's probably the best connected visual, or not connected scene of the first or the second. It's the stumped question. Who is the killer in Friday the 13th? It's Jason Voorhees' mother.
Right.
And then who is the killer in the original Stab? It's Billy Loomis. I got you, you motherfucker. And now the trick question that Ghostface is asking the main girl in the beginning is referential to Scream.
Right.
And it's just this, the toilet has fully flushed. The snake has eaten itself.
Exactly.
It's wonderful.
And it's I don't know. I agree. It's an incredible opening scene. It's also the first time that the person who we assume is dying in this opening scene survives.
Mhm.
And that's because again, this is then taking what we know of a Scream movie and doing it again, but turning it on its head just enough to make it fresh.
And the other thing I like about this is we mentioned in the last episode where we talked about, Scream really starts to look at technology in 4 with the antenna webcams and all of the ridiculousness. But then in this one, all of the technology is that's real.
Right.
You have smartphones, you have caller ID, you have, her doing the locks on her phone. What a young person's thing to do.
And that whole unlocked, relocked.
Terrifying.
Brilliant, terrifying.
The score as it builds and then lock and then builds and then lock. And it's just so, everything about that opening you know what it is for me? It's for the first time in the franchise, as I've watched through them again, it is the first time where I feel fear. Not looking at this and taking notes, or it's funny because I try to take mental notes or even write notes down as we rewatch movies to discuss on this show. But this one I couldn't be bothered.
Right.
It's just so, from the jump, it is so brutal and fast that it's like you're drawn moth to flame to what are they going to do now? And it doesn't disappoint at any point in this movie.
And then the next thing we do, exactly like in the original Scream, is we cut to outside of the school and we meet our new cast of characters.
Who are all exceptional. I have no problem with any of them except for Liv, who is not a bad character.
She's probably the weakest of the bunch. She's kind of the Tatum.
Feels like a late addition.
Yeah.
It feels like, the Tatum role is kind of Chad's role, which is friend of the main character, but socially distinct. And the Liv character is a little like, it feels like a late addition. We need a reason for someone to go outside. Oh, well, what if he had a girlfriend or whatever? We need Kyle Gallner's character, who is Stu Macher's nephew.
Yes.
To do something.
Yes.
I don't know. And those are the kind of references that don't bother me. Doesn't change anything about the story. It just gives a reason for something to happen.
Yeah, and which is the Kyle Gallner. We don't need to go on him very much, but other than just say, I love whenever he pops up in things, because he does this weird thing where he will pop up in horror movies from time to time. But he is in the 2010 Nightmare on Elm Street remake.
Well, it's good to see that he decided after being in the worst remake to go to a pretty good legacy sequel. Like, you know what? I don't ever want to disappoint everyone at once again. You know that Everything Everywhere All at Once? It's that, but it's worst movie every time. Nightmare on Elm Street remake. It's
it's bad.
And that's why I like talking about this movie, because this movie is not bad. That's what this show should be. Name of movie, and I go, it's bad. And then you say, if we agree or disagree, then you say it, and we go, tune in next week, and that's it. Every episode would be 2 minutes. People would love it.
They probably would. The rest of the characters, how are we all related here? So you have
a web.
Yeah, you do. Because that's what this particular one is all of our new characters are related in some way to previous characters.
Samantha and
Tara
Carpenter.
Correct. Which, okay, do we want to get on this immediately?
Yes.
So Samantha, played by Melissa Barrera. She goes by Sam Carpenter. Her sister, played by Jenna Ortega, Tara Carpenter from The Open.
Yes, obviously a reference to John Carpenter.
Correct. Their last name being Carpenter. Now,
but she, being the older sister Samantha, is actually the illegitimate daughter of serial killer and original Ghostface Billy Loomis, played by Skeet Ulrich.
Correct. Which Billy Loomis's name is already, from the original Scream, is already a nod to Dr. Loomis from Halloween.
Correct. Played by Donald Pleasance.
John Carpenter's original.
Correct.
Which then means that if she were to take if she were to take Billy Loomis's last name, then her name is now Sam Loomis. Dr. Loomis from Halloween, his name is Dr. Samuel Loomis, which in and of itself was originally a reference to the character of Sam Loomis from Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho. So it's a Russian nesting doll
of horror references.
Yes.
Then you have I believe they're twins.
Correct.
of, and I don't know their actors' names, but you have Mindy and Chad.
Yes, Mindy and Chad, and they are Meeks Martin is their last name.
Yes.
Meeks, if you may remember, is Randy's last name. And so they are Randy's niece and nephew, which we get a return of Martha Meeks from Scream 3, Randy's sister.
Which is tremendous. And I didn't, seeing her, because she's been in other things.
Yes.
And so seeing her originally watching this movie, it was nice to see a familiar face in a sea of unknowns.
Yeah.
And then going back through and watching Scream 3 and being like, oh shit, she's great. For the 10 seconds she's in this movie.
Right. She has her little bit part, but I love it because that's one thing that I really can't stand about franchises in general. One of my biggest pet peeves with a franchise is whenever we have like one sequel or something where it's like, we didn't like that one as much. Let's ignore that one. And so I love it whenever a later sequel will go, no, that's canon as well. Let's find a new way of writing that in and making it work. And this one does that with her character from 3 and then immediately bringing in now Sheriff Judy Hicks.
Yes.
From 4.
Before we leave the Randy's family,
Yes.
I also love that Martha and her children have a shrine of Randy in their home.
Yes. They call it the Randy Memorial Home Theater.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. There's a plaque on the wall.
That is so good.
And it says that. And then there's also like a picture of a theater marquee. And it has like 3 of Wes Craven's films.
Oh, okay.
I think it's Hills Have Eyes, Last House on the Left, and A Nightmare on Elm Street. I believe are the 3, but it's 3 of his horror movies emblazoned up there as well.
It is so funny to me that this family, and I love the passing of the torch, that the character, what would have been Randy's niece, Mindy, is the expert. She is the rules authority. She's the one that introduces the phrase requel into the
lexicon,
into the film, and explains the rules in one of my favorite Dewey scenes in the movie. And it's tremendous seeing all of these people be connected. Trying to think of Deputy Hicks,
whose son
is named Wes.
Yes, this nice little name reference to Wes Craven. So Wes Hicks, who is, I guess, crushing after Tara.
Yes,
is kind of the way that they put it in there, but they're not together. I like his character a lot. Actually, I like all these characters. They've done a really good job. Oh, here is a weird reference. So Liv, her last name is Mackenzie.
Okay.
Mackenzie doesn't immediately jump to mind for a character. In Scream, the very beginning, the opening with Drew Barrymore, whenever her parents get home and her dad is like, something is happening here. Quick, run to the Mackenzie's house, call for help.
Oh, Jesus.
And that is a reference. That's exactly the name that Laurie Strode tells to the kids in Halloween. She says, run down to the Mackenzie's house and call the police.
So it is. It's just a nightmare. We thought it was bad with the last one where there were 3 beginnings and 3 endings. But this one, the writer was just like, it'd be great. Let's make everything a reference so that the people who give a shit about this stuff, who have to take the time to pencil it all in, run out of graphite. Let's just ruin their afternoon.
But it's not. It is that thing of it happens and you just blow right past it, because if you don't know it, then you don't know it.
If
it
you
doesn't
don't know
matter.
it, you don't know it. And if you do know it, you go, huh, and then you continue. But when you see it all stacked like this, it is great. And I love so much that it's all of this horror legacy. And again, all it does is boil down to a woman surviving against adversity, and her surviving because she has, a strong friendship and a strong family relationship, and she is confident and smart, and because 4 attempted needle poke at passing the torch, passing a legacy, and it's kind of what the movie turned on its head. But this movie does do that to an extent.
Yes.
Wherein you have another person who is immediately after Tara is attacked, you have the scene where her older sister, our lead, Sam, gets the phone call at a bowling alley.
Yeah, they work at she and Richie work together at a bowling alley in Modesto. Right.
Which is obviously far away, because they make mention of the fact that they have to get to wherever they are, and it will be a while, and Richie offers to go with. Where we also meet Richie which is so funny because we meet the love interest.
Mm-hmm.
And traditionally in this franchise, that's, you know, not the person you want to close your eyes around. And it's so funny because they could not have cast a lot of this episode is going to be me talking about how wonderful and smoochable Jack Quaid is, because he is truly fantastic in this and the things I've seen him in.
That he is.
It's just such a Thaddeus. It's such a good casting because from the beginning, just being who he is and talking the way he does and standing with the posture he has and being a goofball, he is immediately Skeet Ulrich's Billy Loomis. You're like, yeah, he's a fucking psycho. He kills people. And then Richie, you're just like, no, there's no way. He is sweet and compassionate and caring and mild-mannered. He's very Peter Parker. And then he turns out to be a fucking lunatic. And the two of them get that phone call wherein
she learns that her sister has been attacked and is alive. And then they come to Woodsboro. And so our pieces are now here. But we spend a good chunk of time before we ever touch our legacy characters, just with the new ones. We're hanging out with them.
And normally I would think that that's, you know, well, no, get the old characters in as quickly. But no, this works very well. Because now it's, well, these are the people whose stakes I'm now interested in.
Mm-hmm.
If the old cast comes back to support, great, which eventually they do. But in the beginning, it's, no, I would rather see what I am having to invest in, which they do well.
If this is the new cast of characters, like, make me care about them. And they do. Like, they you know, invest us enough to see, hey, this thing is happening again. Let's figure out why it's happening again and why is it happening to all of you. But whenever they can't get any help from the cops, whenever they can't get any help from, you know, the people who should be helping them, who do they turn to?
Dewey, the hero of our tale. And really quickly, they go to Dewey for help after the sisters reconnect.
Right.
It's just a scene to establish relationships and whatnot for them to speak or whatever. Sam is attacked in the hospital.
Right.
And I think it's so funny because they are attacked in a hospital where there are plenty of people milling about, nurses, police, whomever. People are milling about. But that's where the caller Ghostface calls Sam and is like, you know, I know your secret and you need to out yourself because, you know, while you still have the chance. And then he attacks. And it's great because it feels like a nightmare because she is in the cafeteria or like a little lobby or whatever. Yeah. She's attacked completely alone. She bursts out and she's like, I was just fucking attacked. And everyone is like sleepily like, what? But like chairs are knocked over. It's the dream logic that these movies require. It's a packed hospital, which it's an important note that this hospital is packed. Right. But, you know, it's, oh shit, no, this is real. She's been attacked. I've been attacked. We need help. So again, they saddle their horses and they ride to, what does he call him? Something Sam Elliott?
Like knockoff or cheap.
It's it's just this dig, but we ride back to ex-sheriff.
Yeah.
Dewey Riley.
He's living in a trailer. They show up in a similar fashion to the podcasters at the beginning of Halloween 2018 to talk to Laurie, but they come to Dewey and, you know, we catch up with him watching the morning news where Gail Weathers is now a news anchor in New York.
And they are divorced.
Yes.
And this scene has always reminded me so much of Stranger Things. The first season of Stranger Things specifically, where Hopper is this disenfranchised, lonely, sort of pseudo-alcoholic. He's let his neck hair grow really thick and is just very tired. And he lives in this dirty, dingy old trailer. And it's like, oh no, not you too, Dewey. You were the silly one. You're the baby boy. What happened to you? You've gotten so old. Perfect set of teeth. But I don't know if you're listening to this right now, which you have to be for this to be happening. David Arquette has perfect teeth. That none of them are longer or shorter than the others. They all line perfectly. I would hate to find out that they're like dentures or veneers because they are perfect.
I mean, we'll have to ask him one day, you know?
Yeah,
we'll go to a horror convention and we'll stand in line and pay the money to meet him and then just be like, hey, by the way, let me see your teeth.
I throw the question out. You grab them, I'll yank. And if they come out, we got them.
Like we're pulling the Ghostface mask off of a killer.
And then he then confesses to a litany of crimes.
Right.
He's like, "Oh, you caught me. Yeah, I did smuggle in a bunch of." And it's like, "Well, hold on. We were just interested.
We didn't
in the
want to
teeth."
know all this. In his trailer, he has Tatum's ashes on the mantle.
Also didn't notice that.
It's one of those things where like fans have always brought up like several times over the years of just like, why is Tatum never mentioned after the first movie?
No.
It was his sister. And so this one they kind of like made a point to have that. They also have a picture of David Arquette and Courtney Cox, like a picture of them actually whenever they were married is the picture that they see there. You also see it as his background on his phone.
That's cute.
And
yeah.
So because they're divorced at this point. Like they're doing that.
It's funny how anybody involved in this franchise with these two characters has always treated it. No, let's mirror their Dewey and Gail's life. Dewey and Gail's life will always mirror David and Courtney's. Whatever's going on, that's what's going on.
Right.
And I think that they barely have to act.
Yes.
And it's
their
so good.
scenes together are like heartbreaking.
No.
Because I don't know, you know what's going on in their actual lives and what they're probably dealing with there, coming to terms with that. But then also once you've seen it and it's like, Dewey meets his end, it's like, it just rips your heart out.
Well, and I think that goes a long way to just kind of show how good David is, not only as an actor, but this role, because take the Gale Weathers completely out of it. Tatum is gone.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we mentioned this in Scream 2, where Sydney has become his pseudo sister.
Yeah.
The one that he looks after, the one that he makes sure is okay. And when he calls her and she picks up, which is where we see Nev, who is beautiful and amazing and was, just another name that I didn't recognize.
Uh-huh.
And so it's just a human being. And you do the thing where you know what movies are like. So you see the camera swoops in and it's this woman with the stroller and she turns around and there's light on her face. And it's like, well, that's got to be somebody. I didn't realize how big of a fucking deal it was. And his call with her is just so, he's holding back tears. Do not come here.
Yeah.
And it's just like, what anybody would do to somebody, for somebody that they love is warn them emphatically, do not come here. And she mentions Mark.
Mm-hmm. He asks how Mark is doing.
Right. And she's like, he's whatever. And I turned to you in a rewatch, I think maybe yesterday.
Yeah.
And I was like, holy shit, is she talking about Mark King, like Patrick Dempsey's character? And you were like, it has to be. And I hope that's true. Because I think there are rumors that he is in 7.
Which again, that's another one of those little like, well, let's bring in that from 3.
Mm-hmm.
He hasn't been mentioned in 4 or anything like that, but like, let's bring in all those little like loose threads.
Sure.
Which I love so much. And then, not only does he tell Sydney that of like, stay away, he can't bring himself to call Gail. So he texts her in bumbling Dewey fashion.
The smiley.
Of like, hey, it's happening again. Do not come back to Woodsboro.
Yeah. There's no reason for you to put yourself in danger. Please do not come back here. And no one ever, and in classic Dewey fashion, he has the right advice that no one listens to.
Which is then funny because since Randy is not around in this one, Dewey is actually one that gets to give the rules. Yeah. And he gives them to Richie and Sam on the couch there.
Which, 2 things. Number 1, you noticed this on one of the last rewatches, we then watched it with commentary, and they commentate on the fact that when they go to Dewey's trailer, when Richie and Sam go to Dewey's trailer and they open the door and Richie and Dewey is standing there, Richie's eyes are so wide. It's like meeting Cher. It's like, what the fuck? Like a living legend. And his eyes are so funny. And then immediately Dewey's like, don't trust the love interest. And it's like, yeah, don't. And then I think Richie
he takes immediate offense to that of just like, well, I don't have to take this from you. Like, why do you?
Yeah. And then he's like, Dewey guessed it in 1.
Yeah.
Never trust the love interest. And it's always so funny to watch the Ghostface killer again. When you watch through the original Scream, watching Billy and Stu, and it's Stu mentioning, well, no, they probably would do it like this, talking about how to kill Casey Becker, and Stu's like, and Billy's, shut up, don't you have any tact? And it's like, it looks like, hey man, these two girls that we love are both upset about what you're talking about. Stop talking about it. But when you watch it in hindsight, it's like, no, Stu's a fucking psycho. He's a murderer. He can't help but brag. And Billy doesn't want to get fucking caught yet. So he's like, stop talking about it. And when you watch Richie's like, the way he takes offense to that, and you can tell he's just like, when you rewatch it, I read in his body language, like, oh, you mother, like, how the fuck did you know? And it's so good. It's so good.
His performance is probably the best in this film.
It's him, David Arquette.
Yes.
They are both so good. We're talking about the new cast. One that we haven't mentioned, Amber Freeman, I believe her last name is. She doesn't stand out to me in any way.
She does not have a tie to the previous cast or characters.
No compelling motivation to me. It feels like she was added because they need a second Ghostface.
Yeah. And the only reason the only tie that she has to the original is that she lives in
Stu Mucker's house. Yeah.
Right.
And outside of that is
she's best friends with Tara.
Right. And it upsets me so much because it is the only thing that this movie lacks. The reason it doesn't detract from the movie in a noticeable or markable way, in my opinion, is because of how good Richie's character is. Richie's last name is Kirshner. Kirsch. Okay. Richie Kirsch is so excellent as Ghostface with such a believable, psychotic motive that like her being, oh, and I'm his girlfriend doesn't hit as hollow. Them having a relationship, like a romantic relationship, is odd.
Well, and it mirrors a couple things. So them being, Richie being the boyfriend and her being the best friend of Tara, or of our two lead actresses.
It's reminiscent of 4.
I was going to say is reminiscent of the leaked script of 2, where Derek and Haley, or Hallie, I can't remember the character's name now, but
are
Sydney's
together.
Best friend, they were going to be the original killers. That leaked, that scrapped. They went a different way. So it's kind of a reference to that, but then it's also that, Jill and Charlie are secretly together and the killers.
And she is like Kirby's best friend, and he is Kirby's love interest. It's like this weird nebulous thing. It's also reminiscent of what they ended up using in Scream 2, because a little known fact, Mickey and Nancy Loomis were also together. So that's the thing about radio or shows like this. I can just say whatever, and there's a sect of people who will believe me.
That is true. But also, what's funny is you make that joke, and there is a connection there because the way that Richie and Amber met each other, message boards online, which is how both Nancy Loomis
and Mickey Altieri meet.
Yes.
That's funny as hell. And I think that's my big gripe with the movie is as we meet our young cast and eventually, because if Amber sucked as a character, it's like, okay, who cares? It's the best friend. She serves the best friend role, and then maybe she dies or whatever. But the fact that she is one of the most pinnacle points of these films is that reveal. And she is the one who gets to unmask herself.
Yes.
Because Richie does not. Richie is he's in his clothing and he is just revealed. But she gets to do the famous unmask.
Well, and she gets to do, is that later or is that? Yeah, she gets to do both because
she also kills Dewey.
She gets the reveal of she shoots Liv in the face, which that scene is
crazy.
Insane.
And her performance there is good.
Yes,
the twist is very good.
And then she also gets the reveal of physically getting to take off the Ghostface mask. She gets to kill Dewey.
That character kills Dewey, which bothers me because it's like, it bothers me in a way that doesn't matter. It's not important. Who cares? The legacy
is it just
of
logistically or is it?
No, it's just that if you're going to give that to someone, it's not that you can't give it to a new character. I'm fine with that. If it had been Richie, I would have been fine with that. Or if it had been Amber and we had gotten to know her a bit, that also wouldn't have been a problem. But she is best friend until she is psycho murderer. And there is no in between. With Richie, you find out a lot of shit about his life and about the things he likes. You get to spend a lot of time with him. She is very much and also, which it's not the end of the world. Again, Richie does so much heavy lifting and the gunshot. Oh, and also another thing that I like with the Amber character is running out of the house. And I know I'm getting a little ahead of where we are in the movie, but she runs out and it's oh my God, I've been stabbed. And the two legacy.
That's bait.
Yeah. Gail and what do you think? It's a trap. And then, and she's like, fuck this. And she poor Gail, immediately gets fucking gut shot.
Yeah. which, you know, is just another one of those, like, these characters keep getting injured in ways that should just knock you out completely. And they're just like, you know.
It's when Batman takes off. Batman takes off the suit and he's covered in scars. And it's like, that's not what he would look. He would just be a lump of scar tissue.
Yeah.
He has been shot and stabbed and thrown and mutilated, and his back has been broken, and he has been hit by Darkseid's laser vision and sent back in time. Like, he would be covered in scars in a way that no other human being should be. Like Dewey.
Yeah, much of the same way with Dewey. The next sequence of the movie is one of my absolute favorites because of how it's using horror cliches and subverting them so long and so many times that it almost becomes annoying, and then it becomes good again.
Yeah, they do this in previous Scream movies as well for a length of time. They do it in Scream, where Sidney is running corners, opening doors, doing things, and the door closes, and it's like, no. But it is so long in this movie.
They do it, like, I think 4 times in this sequence, and they do it earlier in the opening sequence as well. Tara opens up a cabinet to get something out, and then she closes it. Nobody's there.
And in this one, they do this amazing thing that they've done in this franchise before, but they do it a lot in this, where they find a reason to have a hanging black piece of fabric with a white something on top of it. And it's wonderful.
They do it several times throughout this movie. They do it in the opening sequence. They do it here, and they do it in the basement of the Mocker house.
With the refrigerator.
Yes.
Yeah. And every time it gets you, every time, even rewatching, it's like, oh shit, oh wait.
Because you don't know, is this the time that someone is going to be standing there or not?
Right.
And it works either way. But it's this beautiful, like, we're at the Hicks house. Judy Hicks has gone. She's going to get sushi. And she leaves Wes. And in a reversal of a gender reversal, he undresses and gets in the shower, which would typically be, you know, the female victim going to do that.
Yeah.
And they play on, which is also a reference to Psycho. And so we've already mentioned it, but it's like Hicks gets it, Sheriff Hicks. And then, like, I can't believe they do it, but they get her. And then almost immediately, like, he comes out, he does this whole sequence where, you know, he's opening cabinets, closing cabinets. There's this beautiful steady cam that just weaves through this house for all those shots. And then the front door is cracked open, and he cautiously approaches, because he's been taking this very seriously, and he's got pepper spray and
he
a
mentions,
stun
like,
gun.
yeah, my friends are making fun of me because I'm carrying around, like, mace in my pocket.
But his mother is the sheriff who has already experienced this once before. So it
Yes.
makes sense that he would be taking it seriously.
Yeah.
And closes the door. He doesn't go out to see what's out there. He's smart. He closes it. He turns around, and Ghostface is there and kills him in just, like...
We're talking about how brutal this movie is.
Yes.
And this
is
kind of
brutal in a different way because it is slow. So
it's the Private Ryan knife push.
Yes.
Where it's like,
yes,
the second that's happening, you can put yourself into the mind of someone who's realizing that they are about to die. And it's like, in this totally preventable way that is super slow and is just being done at the will of someone who just wants you dead. And it's like, it's horrifying.
Yeah. And it is this weird, because they say that they built that practically. So him getting stabbed through the throat is a practical effect. They cleaned it up with digital stuff afterwards and stuff like that. But it's like, it is, I hadn't seen anything like that. There's that one. And then there's later with the Richie through the cheek.
Oh,
That's an amazing stab.
God damn. Oh, shit. An amazing stab. Which brings us to the fact that something that I don't think we've mentioned, basically the entire movie is set around the idea that they had just made Stab 8.
Right.
And it's terrible. That it takes place a long time after. It has nothing to do with any of the originals.
Yeah, it doesn't have Sidney in it. And that is, you've already mentioned Last Jedi. But that is some of the in-jokes that are being referenced there, is that they say that Rian Johnson, they don't even mention him by name.
The Knives Out guy.
Is the one who directed it. And it's the 8th movie in the franchise, which The Last Jedi was.
I love and even, like, you know, because there's so many jokes about even The Force Awakens, where Kylo Ren ignites his lightsaber in the trailer, and it's got the two, like, the cross guard. And it's so funny because in this one, in the trailer, you're watching, I think Richie is watching a YouTube video about Stab 8. And one of the hosts of this YouTube video is like, and of course you have Ghostface's signature new weapon. And it cuts to a man wearing a metallic silver Ghostface mask, a bulletproof vest, gloves. He looks like Arnold from The Predator, and he is holding a flamethrower. And it's like, what the fuck was Stab 8?
Yes.
I want to see it really bad.
So let me go on another, web of references here.
Excellent.
Everything that he's watching, everything that you see on that YouTube page is reference to something.
Mm-hmm.
So in the about or the related videos, there is an interview with Kirby having, like, in this little weird way, somehow survived Scream 4, the events of Scream 4. There's a picture of Hayden Panettiere there, and it says, like, a chat with the survivor of the whatever. And then there's another video that's like, could Stu Macher have survived the events of the Woodsboro murders? And then Matthew Lillard is the voice of Ghostface in Scream 8 in the clip that Richie is watching.
Amazing.
So Richie, that's another thing that's kind of interesting, is that Richie's trying to play it off the whole time that he's never seen the Stab movies.
Right.
So he is watching them on Netflix as the movie goes on. So he learns more and more in a similar way that, like, Joel, Gail's cameraman from 2, reads her book and goes, wait, this is what happened last time? I'm getting out of here.
Bye.
So,
well, and what I love about it,
Richie's doing the same thing.
What I love about it is that they're towards the beginning, they're in the hospital, and it's like Sam's attacked. I was like, well, where the fuck were you? And he was like, I was watching Netflix. But he won't say I'm watching Stab.
Yes.
It's smart.
Because it would implement even more.
Yeah. It would implicate the fact that
Thank you. That's the word I was looking for.
It would implicate the fact that not only does he know more than he's letting on, but that he's watching these movies as it's happening. So just like, because Sam trusts him enough that if he's like, well, I'm watching these because I want to know how to fucking survive, that's believable enough. But the fact that you then find out later that he's like obsessed and that he's actually watching them because he can't stop watching them is so funny.
And then he also gives the throwaway line of, like, the whole franchise goes off the rails with number 5, which is, this is the 5th movie in the Scream franchise. It's self-referential in that. So it's, again, a hat on hat. You mentioned the hospital. So that's where we go next. And we've been in the hospital before for Tara, and we return to her, and it's a little later, and the hospital is seemingly...
Which I'd like to comment on, because we go to the hospital in 4 as well. And in 4, they are banging bedpans and beating each other.
Firing guns.
There's a gunshot. There's so much noise. Jill tears her leads off, and the alarms don't start going off. And it's like a famous point out that the second she tears the leads off, the monitor is going to show her flatline. She is a trauma victim. She would be rushed with code. Doctors and nurses would rush in there to do everything, but nobody gives a fuck because the hospital is fucking empty.
Right.
So then we cut to 5, where the first time we're in the hospital, there's some people.
Yeah.
The sheriff is there.
Police presence, things like that. But now that the sheriff has called, I need everyone to converge on my house because my son is going to be murdered.
Everyone leaves. But the other thing that doesn't account for is everyone leaves.
Yeah, the staff is completely
no one
gone.
left.
They left one cop who Tara comes out and finds dead on the ground.
Here's a fun story for those of you listening at home that don't know me personally. And if you do, you don't know this about me. I had an injury a little over a year ago, and I needed back surgery. And I was in the hospital. I've been in the hospital for it twice for a collection of about 20 days. There are so many people in a hospital at any given time making so much noise that I couldn't sleep. It is all day, every day, a staff of dozens of people with hundreds of patients and dozens of doctors. There are more bodies moving around in a hospital than there are in any other, like with the exception of a very busy restaurant. There are more people moving and shaking in a hospital and they're shaking from the Parkinson's, but there are more people moving and shaking in a hospital than I've ever seen before. So it immediately throws me off when we go back to the hospital in 5 and Tara hears a commotion outside and is becoming worried. And it's like, there's no one in that hospital. It's like, bullshit. A janitor.
Right.
An orderly. Someone coming to take your fucking blood. Like, how is there no one here? But it works fine.
Because it brings us to the set piece that unfortunately ends the life of, our hero, really.
I think it's appropriate in an audio setting, like a podcast, Not very long. Let's call it 5 seconds. Let's do 5 seconds of silence for Dewey. He's the best character, and we will never really be able to talk about him again. Dewey, you shall be missed.
He truly will.
Such a good line. It's an honor.
Yes.
Such a good line.
It's, I don't know, that whole scene of the fake out with the phone call and Sam tricking Ghostface and killing time and getting there because it's the slowest moving chase scene ever.
Oh my God. That the visuals of like, because you forget the wounds that Tara suffered.
Mm-hmm.
She pulls her casted broken leg out from under the bed and winces and screams. And it's like, oh shit, that's right. He stepped on her fucking leg.
She's been stabbed through the hand.
So as she starts to roll the wheelchair, it starts to bleed again.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, oh God. And it's so graphic. And then he dumps her out of the fucking chair. Well, I guess it's Amber. She dumps Tara out of the chair and is just slowly walking. And you've got
she's, oh yes,
the voice changer in the neck. So
which I don't know. We talked about like the voice changer thing in 3.
Mm-hmm.
This is an addition. We've never seen Ghostface have this sort of thing. I love it.
I think it's great.
Yeah. It solves a lot of problems.
It allows the character to speak live.
Mm-hmm.
Now, granted, we have a mixer that has a bunch of sound effects and different, vocal effects. And as you talk into them, you can both hear the effect in your headphones and my voice. Mm-hmm. So again, the technology doesn't exist. The voice changing can't be done. It can kind of be done now with AI to an extent, but not the way it's done in these movies. But who gives a shit?
Right.
If you're paying attention to that kind of logic, then the movie's not good. And even when Amber clicks the voice changer on and starts to, hello, Samantha, and begins to speak or whatever, it's like, oh man, well, what are they going to do now?
Yeah.
And it's so good. Dewey dies because Dewey follows the rules.
Yes.
And that's heartbreaking because it breaks that final rule, is that if you actually listen to Randy and now Mindy and follow the rules, you live. But Dewey followed the rules.
Mm-hmm.
No, I guess he didn't. He wanted to shoot them in the head, but he separated and went alone.
Yeah, it's a little of both. But yeah, he's trying to go and get that, you've got to do the double tap. You've got to make sure. You've got to shoot them in the head.
You have to shoot. They always come back. You have to shoot them in the head.
Yes.
And then the way he is killed, and we've seen a lot of horror movies. We have seen chainsaws go through people. We have seen, anything from Saw is worth mentioning. We've seen some fucked up stuff watching all of these movies, but the realism of having 2 of these hunting knives through the spine, through the chest, just stomach and chest get torn all the way up. What an awful, awful, horrifically wonderful kill in a horror movie.
Yeah. And, we've seen Dewey's been stabbed in the back at least twice in previous films, and he's come back from it.
Yeah.
And this one, it's like they've done their research.
Yeah.
They've seen the movies. They know how he's survived these things. So let's do it double.
In a way that he can't.
Yes.
Right.
And then in the middle of it, he's getting the reason that he is taken by Ghostface in that moment, because he has Ghostface dead to rights, is his phone starts ringing.
Yeah.
And he sees
on the floor.
And he sees who's calling.
Mm-hmm.
And Ghostface jumps him. The gun skitters away. The phone falls. He gets stabbed, gutted. And he looks down, and it's Gail calling to check on him. And it is just heartbreaking.
It's horrific that he smiles through his death because he sees her face one last time. Oh, and then her running up. Oh, we didn't even talk about their conversation.
We didn't. We briefly, them meeting outside of the sheriff's house, and
they haven't seen each other since, from what is revealed, Dewey leaves New York in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
He can't face his life there. He doesn't like it. He comes back to Woodsboro.
And they, he's just like, not saying like I've failed you, but like I just couldn't cut it. Like I had to, the city life, the New York life was not for me. It was never going to be. I belong in Woodsboro, and you don't, unfortunately.
And it's just sad because he says something to the effect of, I was just a coward. And she's through tears. Now, keep in mind, these people had been married for a decade. Mm-hmm. They loved each other. They had issues in their lives that didn't work out. So the real world effect of knowing that makes it harder to hear, you are many things, Dewey, but you were never a coward. And it's just like, ugh.
And it's double that because not only were, they personally involved for that amount of time, they have played these characters for now 25 years.
Yeah.
So it's like
through now 5 movies.
And getting to come back to that and you know, it is moving. Like it brings tears to my eyes on rewatch. It is a moving scene, a moving performance from both of them. And then Dewey's death is the same way.
Well, and that's the thing is
Gale coming into the hospital is the same way. Like
you take either of them out and recreate it and it's not important.
Right.
But they are just good at these characters. They're the best. The casting director for the original Scream film is fantastic. The choices made of these people are, you know, will stand the test of time. And so seeing these two's real life conflict eke out in this way where she rushes into that hospital, and it's like after the reveal and her tears, and she's just sitting in the lobby of the hospital, just dead-eyed, vacant, staring, and then Sydney shows up.
Yes. So that's the reason that we, you know, a good enough reason for Sydney to come back to Woodsboro is Dewey has now been killed.
Which is, I like the fact that they do, the killers at the end explain that everything was methodical. They knew they wouldn't come back unless they had a reason, so they had to kill Dewey. And they knew that, you know, Sam, it wouldn't have been the same. They wouldn't have stuck around. They wouldn't have humored everything if Tara had died in the beginning, so they let her live, but now they're going to kill her. And it's just, we've got her tied up in the closet upstairs. It's also the reveal, you know, Richie's reveals come in waves. And one of the reveals is, because I thought it was like a weak sort of, the first time I saw it, and even on the rewatch, because I had kind of forgotten that he has Tara's inhaler in his breast pocket. I had forgotten about that. But it was just no, I don't have my inhaler, I need it.
Yeah.
It's like, you just left the hospital.
And they seed that along 2 or 3 times before that. They mentioned the inhaler. I think she mentions it in the opening scene. Amber is always very much of like, you have your extra inhaler, right?
Yeah.
And it's kind of a blink and you miss it sort of thing, but it is enough to kind of lead you there.
And then Richie's, you know, I can't believe this worked. Yeah. And he pulls the inhaler out of his pocket. He is so, you know, originally rewatching and seeing him do the heel turn, it's not, to me, it's silly. It's funny. And then it becomes very good. It's hindsight. It's very good because you watch all of his activity earlier on in the movie.
Well, it's kind of like what we said about Billy in the original, is that the first time you watch it, you know, you may go like, man, this guy, he seems like he's awkward and stone-faced and like he's not that great. And then the turn happens and you're like, oh, it's because he's been pretending this whole
he's
time.
masking Psycho the entire time. And Richie, it's like, he just seems so like helpless and juvenile and like, which is wonderful and it adds to the character, but it's like he feels so juvenile and like, how has this man gotten this far in life? And it's like, oh, he is incredibly capable. He's just psychotic. So he has to bury his capabilities, bury his psychopathy in, I'm just a kid. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just, you know, everybody, it's, hey, Gen Z at the party, hey, or Gen Alpha or whatever. He says, you know, time to go, everybody go. And then they throw the cup at him. And he's like, all right, I tried the nice way. Everybody get the fuck out. And that's the first time that it was like, oh no, maybe it is Richie. Because they have now gone to where the movie ends. They love the hospital. They don't have her inhaler. We need to get an inhaler. We don't have one. What's the closest place? Amber always keeps an extra for me at her house.
Right.
They pull up and Richie's like, there's a party here? No, fuck this.
Yeah.
Change
I've
plans.
seen these movies in the last 24 hours. We're not going to the party.
Fucking leave.
And what I love is when we first cut to the party at Amber's house, which we do not know is the Mocker house at this point, because all the party scenes are shot super tight. You don't get full looks at like rooms. You're close up on people. Chad and Liv are like making out on the couch at one point, and it's, I mean, just them in the frame.
You see somebody in the kitchen, but it is like, because even like the corner of the kitchen is from that first movie, so recognizable.
So they don't show the kitchen, they show the dining room.
Right.
They breeze past the kitchen, but they don't show the counters.
They don't show the garage.
Don't show that.
They show the basement.
Go in the basement.
Right.
So it's like they choose all their moments because it is a reveal. Now, the problem is, I believe in the original trailer, they show the house.
Now, here's something I will say along the lines of the trailer, because the trailer is pre-knowledge. Because of the zero pre-knowledge, watching this movie, it's like, because Gail's like, you need to get the fuck out of there. You are at Stu Mocker's house. And it pulls out of the house and it shows it. I had not seen Scream.
Right. So it still meant nothing to you at the time.
Well, it meant nothing to me, so it washed out of my brain.
Uh-huh.
I didn't recognize it.
Oh, right.
So rewatching and watching Scream 5 for the first time in a few years, or a couple of years, it was just like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Because it was a surprise.
Yeah.
I did not know. I forgot.
It's a cool little reveal.
It's amazing.
And the way that the camera work happens there, where it pulls out of the front door and you see the staircase and everything. I love it. I love that reveal.
We're almost caught up to the reveal of Richie, wherein, Gail and Sydney confront Amber. Gail gets shot. They go inside, and then Sydney just she is just so awesome.
Yes.
It's like, if
Just
you are
take charge.
Yeah, if you are a killer or a victim, get the fuck out here right now. And before she opens any door, she puts a bullet in the center mass of the door, and then she opens it, which leads to Richie getting shot in the leg.
Like the first door she goes to is the one that she pops out of in Scream and stabs Billy.
Mhm.
So it's like she goes there, she gets a count of 3 and then just fires. But then the rest of the doors, it's just bang, bang, bang.
Which is sad
no
because
warning.
How great would it have been if she shot her dad?
Oh, yeah.
Like they got him again. Like they pulled him out of the retirement home and they put him in the closet and she pops him.
Now, I don't know how much this is to canon, but apparently there's a deleted scene from Scream 4 where Dewey and Sydney talk about how her father had passed away
Oh, okay. All right.
before the events of Scream 4.
Well, that's sad. It would have been funnier if she accidentally killed her dad.
Yeah, sorry to bring the... Wait, what?
Sorry. No, anyway, his reveal of he opens the door. She's like, Richie, what the fuck are you doing? And he's like, hiding. And then we both agree this is the best line of the whole movie. Ghostface pops out of a door that she hasn't shot behind her. I think she even did maybe shoot it.
Maybe.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Ghostface pops out and Richie screams, holy shit, it's Ghostface. And Sydney gets tackled down the stairs. Richie goes and she's like, grab the gun. He's like, it would be easier if you hadn't fucking shot me. And he goes and gets it. And then it is the coolest reveal, I think, of any Ghostface after Billy Loomis, because Billy Loomis's reveal is so good.
Yes.
And then that's the pinnacle. Richie's is so good for that character.
It's not exactly the same, but the way that the stab happens with the reveal is very similar to Charlie to Kirby.
Yes.
4.
It's that slow, I've got it, you didn't see it, too late. And it's a bummer it's me. Because it is.
Yeah.
I love Richie. I don't want him to be the bad guy. But
it's
guess what
also-
happens to bad guys in this series? They get TVs dropped on them.
Yeah. It's also, it sucks that it's self-referential of, well, this is the cliche. Like we've done the boyfriend before.
Yeah.
It sucks that it's me, but it works the best for the movie.
Yeah.
Because it's the reversal of the reversal. Like,
It's
everything old is new again or whatever.
Yeah. Amber's been revealed because she shot Liv in the face. The recreation of the Randy look behind you scene with Mindy.
Mm-hmm.
And then she does.
Yes.
And she's like, wait. And she turns around and he's standing there and it's like, oh shit. And she runs away. It's so good.
And yeah, we've skipped a couple, people getting stabbed or people getting maybe murdered and things like that. The only piece of technology that's kind of done there is the find your friends app on your phone
With
that
Chad,
Chad
yeah.
and Liv want to, and that's kind of clever.
Mhm.
That's a kind
That's
of
very clever.
fun little play there.
It's also such a creepy moment when he's been stabbed and he's stealing himself and he's like, no, fuck it, I'm gonna go. And he starts running and that shed door bursts open because it's far enough that the stunt performer in the Ghostface costume is almost out of focus.
Yeah.
And then becomes into focus. And it's that Dewey stab, man. It's that ugh, I can't imagine.
And then that, Chad collapses and he's been stabbed in the gut 3 or 4 times and he's just looking forward and he can't form words as Richie's car pulls up and illuminates him for just a second, but he keeps pulling around the side of the house to where it's no, he's in the shadows again. And then they go in the house and they don't even know that Chad is bleeding out in the yard.
Yeah. Liv walks in and she's like, where the fuck is your brother? Or no. Liv walks in and is talking to Mindy and Mindy's like, where the fuck is my brother? And she's like, why would I know? And then there's that heel turn of she's like, maybe I am the killer.
Yeah.
It's maybe it is me. And then she gets her goddamn brains blown out of her head.
Yeah. And yeah, we've mentioned it, but it's like, yeah, that scene is a wild, just everything. It's something about the way that the camera work in that scene operates is everything is locked down. And there's a lot of people, all of our main new cast pop into that room and they're all screaming at each other of just like, well, no, it's you. Well, no, you have blood on your hands. Well, no, it's gotta be, oh my God, you're the killer. And everything's locked down and we're cutting back and forth. And then as soon as like, Liv, shut up. I'm the killer. And just shoots her in the head. And like the camera just, but it snaps zooms onto Amber, but at this like horrible angle. And then everything else is just like angle as everyone runs from the room.
She has an exceptional evil grin.
Yes.
And it's very sinister. And then the only time where organization happens is when Gale and Sydney get in the house.
Yeah.
Or when Sydney gets in the house. Then it's organized. Before that, the old cast, they've never gone through this before.
Mm-hmm.
So it's fucking psychotic and it's crazy and everyone's running and screaming. And then Sydney walks in and starts putting bullets in doors. And then you have Amber dies. Gale gets her revenge, covers her in hand sanitizer, and kicks her into a stove, which she bumps and sparks and bursts into flames.
It's a bunch of accidents that then end up in her, lighting herself on fire.
She pops back up. Gale's like, you want this? And Sydney's like, nah, it's all you, dude. Gale blows her brains out.
Which is fitting because just before that, before she hits and catches on fire, is she's choking, Amber is choking Gale.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, I can't believe that I get to do you too. Meaning Amber's the one who killed Dewey. Now she gets to kill Gale. Gale kicks her into the stove. That all happens. And then Sydney gives Gale Dewey's gun.
Mm-hmm.
Amber is killed by Dewey's gun because fuck you.
Yeah, it's great. And that's the thing is everything in this movie, they push boundaries, they go through old material, but nothing ever feels like a fuck you. It all feels like, isn't
To
this
the
nice?
audience.
Yeah, it also doesn't feel like member berries.
No.
Because people in this show are going to learn that I hate that shit.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, look, in Rogue One, it's the guys from the cantina for some reason. But I love so much all of these little like, yes, Amber kills Dewey. But yes, in a way, Dewey gives the only person he's ever loved the power to kill her back.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, that's exceptional. That's exceptional rating. Richie is then goes on the tangent that we heard at the beginning of the episode where he is so confused. And this is, I think, one of the major talking points of this movie. He's so confused as to how can people look at us and laugh? Well, this is serious. I love this more than anything in the world. It's like, it doesn't matter what you love, man. It can't be this important.
Right.
Because then you fucking murder people, you sick fucking asshole. The last thing that Richie says before Sam kills him in return, what about my ending? It's like, you fucking psycho. You have been stabbed in the face. What do you mean, what about my ending? And it's just so good. His character is so integral the entire time.
Yes. He's everything in this movie. With that, the big reveal, the speech that he gives, them running around, Gale and Sydney, fighting and killing Amber.
Tara's gone from the closet that they've tied her up in.
There's this question as to whether or not Tara is in on it as well. And we don't know if she's still tied up or not. And then she disappears and it's like,
This movie is exceptional at both tying the webs of references together, but also I think this is one of the more, there are so many moving pieces in this.
Yeah.
It's like the original at that party where Randy and Stu and Gale and Dewey and everyone's running around. It's that, again, everyone is running, everyone's moving. There are a million moving pieces, but somehow you never lose track of anyone.
Right.
It's like, we have an idea of where everyone is because it's just the geography of the house is built very well. The movements are all syncopated in this way where like, oh no, I know he has shouted through the house, Amber, where is Tara? She's not here. But because we saw what room Sam went in, what closet, you can visualize where in the house they are now so that when Tara pops out and attacks Amber, it's like, oh no, you can trace their movements and it makes it feel both climactic and also insane,
right,
but never overwhelming. No, it's never like, oh my God, what the fuck is happening?
Yeah,
it just feels
it's pretty easy to follow, and you get the he comes down. He's going to finish off Sam, and then we haven't mentioned this at all.
No, we haven't, and I realized that 10 seconds ago as I'm mentioning her stabbing him in the cheek.
So Sam, as we brought up very early on, is the illegitimate daughter of Billy Loomis.
Right.
And throughout the film, there's 3 or 4 times where we see her having conversations with like a ghost of, or
Like a psychotic, like schizophrenic hallucination of him and her reflection.
right.
He stands behind her in the clothes that he was wearing in the original Scream, covered in blood. And it is Skeet Ulrich who is back playing that role, which is
great.
But it's also funny because we were talking much earlier about Mortal Kombat, wherein he has again reprised that role and did mocap for it, so that he's under the mask. And it's just, I love that.
I'm happy that we bring him back into the fold in a way that is a little strange for this franchise that kind of sticks pretty realistic. But from what I know, Kevin Williamson, whenever the writers and directors of this movie gave him the script to, give it a once over, he was like, that's the one thing, the like ghost of Billy Loomis is like the one thing that doesn't feel anything like a Scream movie. And that's the reason you should do it.
That's great. Yeah, because I agree with that. It feels very almost supernatural for this film.
The closest it gets to me, we didn't mention it in our Scream 3 discussion, I don't believe, but there's a couple times throughout that movie where you see like the ghost of Sydney's mother.
Right.
And that always feels bizarre to me in that movie. And they're just, it's kind of the same thing of like, she has a nightmare about her mother, ghostly apparition walking out of the woods and banging on the window. And then it turns into Ghostface. And so it's kind of, that's the closest comparison I can make.
And I don't know how real to life that is of actual mental illness. But it never feels that the ghost of Billy Loomis in her mind's eye never does things that couldn't be explained by mild schizophrenia,
right?
By mild mental illness. If she, at one point she is being strangulated by Richie and or not strangulated, but attacked by Richie. And she looks up at a mirror. Billy is in the mirror pointing at a knife.
Yes. That had fallen, into the corner of the room earlier.
But that's explained by she saw it earlier and is now remembering that in a way where it's visualized in her mind's eye. None of this bothers me. If anything, I love the fact that we got to bring him back.
Yes.
And he has spoken lines and he's great.
Apparently all of those scenes were shot in a day. They brought him in and they shot it just him and Melissa on like a green screen. And just shot
probably
all of
him
that.
and the green screen and she speaking off.
Yeah, so that he could play off of her emotions and things like that.
Yeah.
So
he's great. I'm surprised he didn't have more of a career.
yeah.
I hope that this resurgence will bring him out, because even if it's just to play a bad guy, he's exceptional.
Yeah.
He was really good. Now, I can't really say that because he's in this and he's in 6. They continue that theme. 6 is the most celebrative of 6 is the most
whole franchise.
celebrative of it's everything. They open their arms and they bring in everything, and it's great. And he continues to be a part of that. And I understand that this series, which includes these characters, is now over, unfortunately, which the reasons why are bad.
Yeah. If we go over that, I feel like that would be next
and
Scream
we
6
will,
conversation.
but it's heartbreaking because I like these characters, I like the story, but as far as the opening of it, the Batman Begins of Scream of You, that's second Batman Begins reference in this podcast. I think last week I talked about how Ty sleeps in our attic under a giant Batman Begins coat. Ty, how's that working as the temperature continues to drop?
Oh my God, I think he's frozen.
I just realized that he's been dead this entire time.
Oh my God. No, I'm not dead.
Oh, thank God.
Oh, good.
We don't know how to work this board. Thank God. We'll just be recording this episode forever.
So we get to the very, the end. It's Sam sees the reflection of Billy. She grabs the knife that Richie doesn't notice. And he's got her seemingly he's going to end things.
Dead to rights, yeah.
Dead to rights. And she gives, a new and final rule for a requel, which is
don't fuck with the daughter of a serial killer.
Which is, I don't love that line.
Yeah,
it's not my favorite. And then she stabs him through technically both cheeks, through one, through the other, and then proceeds to stab him 21 more times he says that line that you gave of, what about
my ending?
And then, I mean, she does give a brutal, like, here it comes.
Yeah.
And then slits his throat.
It's awful.
And
And his performance of choking and his eyes rolling around trying to find an answer, it's awful. It's wonderful and it's awful.
because it's that thing of like, you think you have won and then you didn't.
Yeah.
Like, and she gets you, worse than you ever could have gotten her.
Right.
And Sydney comes in, Gail comes in from the other room. They hand her the gun and they're like, hey, be careful. They always come back. And she doesn't even wait for him to pop back up. She shoots him 3 more times, once in the head, done. But then the other killer, much in the same way in Scream 2, when Mickey pops back up, Amber runs in from the other room and they're using Dewey's gun. So they've fired 6 bullets. They're out in that one, if you're keeping track. And so there's another gunshot that kills Amber from the side, and it's Tara. And she gives this line that's been threaded through. I mean, it's this joke that was set up 2 hours before where she's like, I still prefer the Babadook.
I know.
And it's, again, I'm not 100% on that line, but it's fine.
She says it with such believable intent.
Yes.
Of like, I can't believe I just had to live through a genre of film that I don't like.
Yes. And that actually brings up a good point, is that Jenna Ortega, I think, is absolutely incredible in this movie.
Yeah, she's very good.
And she's now gone on to,
Everything.
I mean, she's basically become a Scream queen immediately after this, if you will.
Tim Burton's new daughter. Yeah.
Yeah. But she's done Studio 666, which was the same year as this movie, or released the same year as this movie. She was in X, the Ty West film. She is obviously star of Wednesday. She was in Beetlejuice. She's a ton of horror films and thrillers and things like that.
Sort of
after
that
this.
dark alternative media. She is like on the throne of that. Yeah.
Yes. But I think her performance is incredible. I think most performances from the new cast are really, really good, except for, unfortunately, and maybe my opinion is different than most people's, but I do not care for Melissa Barrera's performance.
Yeah. Which is funny because that's what you said to me before we saw it for the first time. Before we sat down, you were like, by the way, just a warning, the lead of this movie is terrible, so buckle in. And it was just like, oh, like the Paramount stars are going, and you're just like, good luck. She's awful in this. And it's like, oh, okay.
And it doesn't, like, I've now rewatched it I don't know how many times.
Not getting better in this.
It doesn't get better. There's a couple moments where I'm like, okay, there you are. You're acting. But most of the time, it just seems like she's sitting there reciting the lines from the script.
Yeah. Which is bad in when you sit her in a scene with Jack Quaid and with Jenna Ortega, because they're both so compelling in this.
Yes. Melissa and Jenna have 2 scenes in the hospital at different times where it's just the 2 of them and they're having a heart-to-heart. And Jenna is laying in a hospital bed, covered in bandages and the breathing apparatus and IVs and everything else.
She's leaned backwards, unable to use body language.
And she is acting circles around Melissa,
who is giving the dialogue of "I'm Billy Loomis's kid," which is why Dad left and why I ran out and became a drug addict, which is horrible.
Right.
Horrible information to be giving your kid sister.
But she doesn't sell it to me at all.
I agree with that.
I don't know. I'm baffled by it. And she was in before this, she was in the Heights, the film version of the Lin-Manuel Miranda musical.
Right.
I have seen that movie. I saw it in theaters. I don't remember enough to remember who she is or what the performance is that she gives. Because there's a lot of big names in that movie that I absolutely love. And so, but that's like the thing that, listening to the commentary, they were just like, oh yeah, she was in the Heights and we got her and that's great. And it's just like, okay, but where is it in this movie?
Yeah.
What did you see? And then they've gone on to she's obviously in Scream 6, but she's also in Abigail, which is the next movie after the Scream movies that they did together.
Right.
And it's like, what am I missing here? Yeah. I don't understand.
I think for me, because I'm not going to defend it. It falls flat a lot. It doesn't bother me as much. I think for 2 reasons. Number one, the movie is big enough that if the main, like if your protagonist isn't scene stealing every scene, isn't just really evocative, it's like, well, that gives an opportunity for the rest of the world around you to shine, which I think is the strongest part of this movie, is that everyone in that movie surrounding her is amazing and gives peaks and valleys to her emotional resonance when speaking to them and dealing with things around her. She is flat.
Mhm.
A lot. It is the thing of like delivering expositional dialogue or just and it's like,
She doesn't show a lot of emotion in her face.
No.
She doesn't emote.
She has a
very
very-
much at all.
she's a very mask face.
Yes.
Now, what
And
I will
think
say,
I think that is the biggest thing. to
what
me.
if it's a choice? Because so did Skeet Ulrich. What if
I
it's a crazy and unconventional choice to act stiff as a board because the character is the illegitimate daughter of a performer who acted stiff as a board? Because the only times that Melissa Barrera's performance as Sam Carpenter really shine is when she's fucking going off on something.
Yeah.
Screaming, stabbing something. Then it feels alive. It feels energetic. Her tear. I'm kidding, by the way. I don't actually believe this.
Well,
but
no,
it's
I'm thinking about it now, and it's just like, is that it?
I don't think that's it.
doing?
But as a pseudo rationale for me, it works.
Yeah.
It's Billy was closed off. Billy was guarded. Billy was awkward. Billy was a psychopath. Sam has got that genetic trait of, I am also psychotic. I am also a killer. I'm repressing that with antipsychotics. So that's the way I view it. And it's the way that it makes the performance work for me. I do not think that this movie is heightened enough that would be a choice.
Right.
I think it is well, maybe. And the well maybe is what gets me through because it doesn't bother me as bad as it bothers you. Because again, going into 6, we watched through 6 together in the theater. And at one point I leaned over to you and I was like, I think she's doing a little bit better in this one. And you leaned over, I swear to God, you leaned over and went, eh. And you're just like, I don't think so. Like, I was just like, okay. And I think that makes sense.
Yeah. We will have to see on my many rewatches.
Yeah. I wish that we, we'll have to post on socials at some point an in memoriam this upcoming week for Dewey.
Yeah. Well, and then in a even grander sense, you have this whole movie, which is like an in memoriam for Wes Craven.
Yeah.
It's something we have the character of Wes who dies. And so they throw a party.
Yeah.
And at said party, Chad leads a toast at one point. And it's everybody at that party raises a glass and says, for Wes.
Which feels super respectful and super wonderful. But do you think that also kind of weakens Wes's character in this, is that he existed to die to then pay homage to a director?
I don't know.
Poor guy. He got stabbed in the neck just so people could say a name with a toast. I hope that doesn't happen to me.
For PJ.
Thanks for tuning into the Third Channel podcast. Please, if you have the time, rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or any of your favorite podcast apps.
You can follow us on social media at Third Channel Podcast, and you can find me online at thatdrosenberg.
You can also reach out to us at thirdchannelpodcast@gmail.com, where we check every message we swear. Third Channel is hosted by PJ Minette
And Derek Rosenberg. Theme song and audio engineering by Fly Guy Ty.
the logo designed by Bell DeVelco.
Episode artwork by Nathan Walkington.
Keep it tuned right here to the Third Channel for all things horror. And remember, don't touch that dial.